Hello, my name is Grayson, 34 years old. I live in a small, modest house in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the streets are covered with golden leaves every fall. It's an old-style house with faded brick walls and a wooden fence I built myself last summer. I work as a plumber, a job that's not glamorous but enough for me to live comfortably, pay my bills, and save a little for rainy days. To outsiders, I probably seem like an ordinary guy. Flannel shirt, muddy work boots, and an old pickup truck parked in the driveway. But I don't mind. I like a simple life, quiet and unpretentious. The thing is, few people know that in an investment account I've quietly built over the past 10 years, the balance has reached millions of dollars. This secret I keep to myself, even from my family. Today is a late autumn day. The air crisp and cool with the scent of pumpkin pie and cinnamon from nearby bakeries lingering in the breeze. Thanksgiving is approaching, just a few days away. It's a time I always look forward to each year, not because of the food or festive atmosphere, but because it's when family gathers together. Or at least, I used to think so. But this year, something feels off. I can sense it, like the way you feel a storm coming even when the sky is still clear. I'm sitting on the old sofa in my living room, the warm orange glow of the table lamp casting light on the wall. In my hand is a cold beer, and in front of me is a small gift box I just finished wrapping. A wool scarf for Mom and a book about baseball history for Dad. I spent the whole week picking them out, thinking this year I'd make everything extra special. I imagined the family gathered around the dining table, laughter filling the air, candles flickering, and stories about the old days. But when I picked up the phone to call Mom and confirm what time I'd come over for Thanksgiving, her voice on the other end made my heart sink. "Grayson, honey." Mom hesitated, her tone unnatural, as if she were choosing her words carefully. "This year, maybe. You don't need to come." I was stunned, my hand gripping the phone tightly. "What do you mean? I've already prepared everything. I even got gifts." "It's not that I don't want you to come," Mom hurried to say, but I could hear the unease in her words. "It's just, Carter wants this Thanksgiving to be special. He's bringing his new girlfriend to meet us, and I think, it'd be better if it's just a small gathering, to make things more perfect." Perfect. The word echoed in my head like a discordant bell. I tried to keep my voice calm, though my chest felt like it was being squeezed. "So, Carter doesn't want me there, is that it?" "Oh no, not exactly, Grayson," Mom rushed to clarify. "It's just, you know how Carter is. He wants this evening to be formal, and you do manual labor and you dress so casually. I'm just worried you'd feel out of place." Out of place. I let out a bitter laugh. I wanted to shout that I'd spent the entire month looking forward to this day, that I'd driven to 3 different stores to find the exact scarf Mom likes, that I'd planned to tell Dad about the time I fixed a client's plumbing and discovered an entire cellar of vintage wine under their house. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded silently, though Mom couldn't see it over the phone, and said, "I understand. Have a good time." When the call ended, I sat there, staring at the gift box on the table. The room suddenly felt stifling, even though the window was open and the autumn breeze was blowing in. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I just felt empty. Like I'd been erased from a part of life I always thought I belonged to. Let me tell you about my family so you can understand why this hurts so much. I grew up in a middle-class family in Pittsburgh, in a 2-story house with a backyard full of apple trees. My dad, Richard, was a railroad worker, now retired, spending most of his time reading or watching baseball. My mom, Ellen, was an elementary school teacher who always took pride in keeping family traditions alive, from Sunday dinners to big holidays like Thanksgiving. They're good people, truly, but they have one major blind spot: Carter, my younger brother. Carter is 5 years younger than me, 29 years old, and the pride and joy of our parents. From a young age, Carter was always the center of attention. He's handsome, with golden blonde hair, a radiant smile, and a knack for charming anyone who listens. Carter excelled in school, always at the top of his class, and now he's a lawyer working for a prestigious firm downtown. He lives in a luxurious apartment, drives a BMW, and never misses a chance to brag about his exotic vacations or lavish parties he attends. But what I know, and what our parents never see, is that Carter is reckless with money. He spends like there's no tomorrow, buying unnecessary things just to impress others and always living beyond his means. I'm different. I'm not the type to show off. I like simple things, a black coffee in the morning, an afternoon tinkering with my truck in the garage, or nights spent reading books about stock investing. My job as a plumber isn't something that makes people ooh and ah, but I'm proud of it. I help people solve problems, from leaky pipes to complex water systems. I don't need the spotlight or recognition, but sometimes I wish my parents looked at me the way they look at Carter. Growing up, I always felt the favoritism. Carter got new clothes and was enrolled in gifted programs, while I often got hand-me-downs from our cousin or was told, "You're older, you can manage." When I decided not to go to college and instead learn a trade, my parents looked at me like I'd thrown away my future. "Grayson, you're smart," Mom once said, her voice full of regret. "Why don't you do something bigger?" Meanwhile, Carter was celebrated like a genius just for getting into law school. But I didn't let it get to me, or at least I convinced myself I didn't. I found joy in my work, in early mornings driving through the city as the sun rose, in helping clients and being thanked with a cold glass of water or a simple life story. And I had a secret, something even Carter, with all his confidence and arrogance, could never suspect. That secret began 10 years ago when I met Tracy. I had just finished fixing the plumbing system for a small financial office in downtown Pittsburgh. Tracy was a new employee there, a 25-year-old woman with brown hair tied up high, sharp eyes, and a smile that threw me off balance. She handed me a cup of coffee as I wiped the sweat off my brow after a long day's work, and we started talking. Not flirting, but real conversations about life, dreams, and what gets us out of bed each morning. Tracy was a financial advisor, but not the kind who bragged about her knowledge. She talked about investing like she was telling a story, with passion and clarity that even I, a plumber, could understand. She told me anyone could build wealth if they were patient and smart. "You don't need to be rich right now, Grayson," she said, her eyes lighting up. "You just need to start." And I did. I saved every penny, learned to invest in stocks, index funds, and even a few small properties. Tracy guided me, not because she wanted a commission, but because she believed in me. She said I had long-term vision, something she rarely saw in her wealthy clients. Over 10 years, my portfolio grew from a few $1,000s to a 7-figure sum. I didn't splurge, didn't buy a fancy car or a big house. I stayed in my small house, drove my old truck, and kept this secret to myself. Only Tracy knew, and she respected my decision when I told her I didn't want my family to know. But now, sitting silently in front of the gift box on the table, I feel my heart being crushed. Carter, my little brother, the golden child our parents dote on, the shining star they always brag about, has just crossed me out of Thanksgiving dinner. The reason? I don't fit in the introduction of his new girlfriend. It's laughable, because I know who she is. The woman Carter has been flaunting on social media for months. Photos in upscale restaurants, weekend getaways, and his beaming face next to a woman with brown hair tied up high and sharp, cold eyes. The moment I saw the first photo, I knew. It was Tracy, my financial advisor. When I realized this, I didn't say anything to Carter. I wanted to keep my stock investments a secret. I still remember the day I texted Tracy, a few weeks after seeing her first photo with Carter. I wrote briefly, "Tracy, you're dating my brother." She replied immediately, her tone as sharp as ever in the message. "Oh, really? Small world. Should I mention it to Carter?" I texted back, asking her to keep it quiet. I didn't want my family to know about my investments. More importantly, I didn't want them to see me through the lens of money. I wanted them to love me for being Grayson, not for the number in my bank account. And now, when Mom told me Carter didn't want me at Thanksgiving because my presence would embarrass him, would make him feel ashamed, I started to feel hurt and exhausted. Exhausted from always being the one overlooked, always the one stepping back to keep the peace. I wonder if Tracy will say anything about me at that dinner, or if she'll keep her promise and stay silent as I asked. Part of me wants her to speak up, wants my family to know I'm not the loser Carter once called me behind my back. But the bigger part of me just wants to live true to myself without needing to prove anything. Thanksgiving passed in silence. I didn't leave the house, didn't turn on the TV, didn't play the cheerful holiday music like I usually do. Instead, I sat in the garage tinkering with a few bolts on my old pickup truck, trying to keep my mind occupied. But every time I paused, the image of my family gathered around the dining table flashed before me. Dad laughing heartily at Carter's stories, Mom bustling with the turkey, and Tracy with her sharp eyes sitting there among people who knew nothing about me. I wondered how she felt. She knew the truth about me, about the hours I spent studying the stock market, about the investments that turned me from a plumber into a silent millionaire. But she was also dating Carter, someone I knew cared only about showing off and never truly understood the value of anyone but himself. I tried not to think too much. I told myself I didn't need their approval, that I'd built my life without Carter's spotlight or my parents' nod of validation. But deep down, the pain still simmered. I didn't want to admit it, but being excluded from the holiday I once cherished, being deemed unworthy just because of my job and lifestyle, made me feel like I'd been erased from my own family. 2 days after Thanksgiving, as I sat in the living room with a cold cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. Tracy's name lit up the screen. My heart pounded, not with excitement, but with a gut feeling that this call would change everything. I took a deep breath, pressed the answer button, and Tracy's voice came through, low but laced with emotion. "Grayson, it's me," she said, her voice trembling slightly as if she were holding something back. "I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving and—" "I'm sorry." I frowned, setting the coffee cup on the table. "Sorry for what, Tracy? What happened?" She let out a long breath, and I could picture her sitting somewhere, maybe in her small office in downtown Pittsburgh, with stacks of documents and light streaming through the window onto her brown hair. "I broke your promise," she said, her voice dropping. I told your family about you, about your investments, about everything you've accomplished. I couldn't stay silent anymore, Grayson, not after what they said about you." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I didn't know how to feel, angry that my secret had been exposed or relieved that the truth was finally out. "Hold on, Tracy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What did they say? What happened there?" Tracy paused, as if piecing together her memories. Then she began to tell me, and each word she spoke felt like a knife, but also like a ray of light piercing the darkness in my heart. "Carter wasn't just bragging about himself," Tracy said, her voice tinged with disgust. "He started talking about you, Grayson, and not in a kind way. He called you a loser. He said you were a plumber with no future, that you were an embarrassment to the family, and that you'd never amount to anything big. He laughed like it was a joke, but your parents, they didn't stop him. Your mom even nodded, saying something about how you chose the wrong path. Your dad just stayed quiet, but he didn't object." I gripped the phone tightly, feeling like the blood in my veins was boiling. I knew Carter always looked down on me, but hearing Tracy recount it, hearing how he turned me into a punchline on the holiday I once loved, made me feel betrayed. "What else did they say?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Tracy sighed. "Carter kept going. He said you were the reason the family couldn't shine in the eyes of his friends. He said you didn't deserve to be invited, that your presence would ruin the atmosphere. And then your mom said, 'Yeah, maybe it's for the best. Grayson will understand.' I was sitting there, Grayson, and I felt like I was going to explode. I couldn't believe they were treating you like that, especially when I know the truth about you." I closed my eyes, trying to breathe evenly. So what did you do? I didn't plan to say anything, Tracy admitted. I promised you I'd keep your investments a secret. But when Carter kept talking, when your parents agreed with him, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up right in the middle of dinner and I said, "You're all wrong about Grayson. He's not a loser. He's one of the smartest people I've ever known." I could picture the scene. Tracy with her eyes blazing, her voice sharp, standing at the table while my family sat in stunned silence. She continued, "I told them you'd built $1 million investment portfolio. I listed your investments, tech stocks, index funds, real estate. I said you did it all with patience and intelligence while still doing the job you love. I told them you didn't need to brag like Carter because you know your own worth. And then I said I was ashamed to sit there listening to them badmouth you without anyone standing up for you." I let out a laugh, a mix of amazement and bitterness. "Tracy, you really said all that?" "And more," she said, her voice softening slightly as if she were smiling. "I said you were the only person in that family I truly respected, that you don't live to impress others but to build a real future." Carter was stunned, Grayson. He dropped his wine glass. "Your mom tried to say something like, 'How do you know this?' But I didn't answer. I just apologized for interrupting dinner and left. I couldn't stay there another minute." I sank back into the sofa, feeling like the world had just shifted. Tracy had done what I never dared to do, confronted my family, exposing the truth I'd kept hidden for 10 years. Part of me wanted to blame her for breaking my promise, but a bigger part felt grateful. Grateful that finally someone saw me. Not just the simple plumber, but Grayson, the man who quietly built a life I'm proud of. "Grayson," Tracy said, her voice turning serious, "I'm sorry for revealing your secret without asking you first. But I couldn't let them keep treating you like that. You deserve respect, and I need to warn you. After what I said, your family might come looking for you. Not because they're sorry, but because they know you have money." Carter asked me about your portfolio right after I left. He wanted to know where you invested, how you got that money. I didn't say anything more, but you need to be prepared. I nodded, though she couldn't see. "Thank you, Tracy," I said, my voice rough. "Thank you for speaking up, and thank you for seeing me." She gave a soft laugh, but I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "You don't need to thank me, Grayson. You're the one who did all that. I just told the truth." When the call ended, I sat there, staring out the window. The golden leaves were still falling, but they no longer carried the same melancholy. Instead, I felt a small flame ignite inside me. Not anger, but determination. Tracy had opened a door I'd kept locked for too long, and I knew from now on things would be different. The days following Tracy's call, I tried to maintain my normal routine. I still woke up at 5 in the morning, brewed black coffee, and drove my old pickup truck to plumbing jobs across Pittsburgh. Work kept me focused, kept me from dwelling too much on what Tracy had told me, on how my family mocked me during Thanksgiving. But every time I sat down to eat dinner alone in my small house, I couldn't stop the questions from flooding my mind. Were my parents truly ashamed of me? Did Carter ever see me as a brother or just a shadow to step over? And now that they knew about my money, what would they do? Tracy had warned me that my family might come looking for me, not out of regret, but because they sensed an opportunity. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think that my parents, despite favoring Carter, still loved me in some way. I wanted to believe that Carter, despite his selfishness, had some shred of conscience. But deep down, I knew Tracy was right. And just 5 days after Thanksgiving, her prediction came true. That day, I was in the garage, my hands smeared with grease from changing a tire on my truck, when I heard the sound of a car engine pulling up outside. I wiped my hands on an old rag, stepped into the yard, and my heart sank when I saw Carter's sleek BMW parked right in front of my fence. The car door opened, and it wasn't just Carter who stepped out. My parents were there too, Mom in the green sweater she often wore in the fall, Dad in his worn-out baseball cap, and Carter, as usual, in an expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled. They stood there looking at me, and I felt like I was walking into a play for which I hadn't read the script. "Grayson," Mom called, her voice carrying a warmth I hadn't heard in a long time. She hurried toward me, arms outstretched as if to hug me, but I stepped back instinctively. She paused, her smile faltering slightly. "Are you okay?" I've been so worried about you." I frowned, glancing from Mom to Dad, then to Carter, who was leaning against the car door, hands in his pockets, wearing the half-smirk I knew all too well as a sign of his smugness. "Worried about me?" I asked, my voice dry. "Why the sudden concern? I thought you all just had a perfect Thanksgiving." Dad cleared his throat, stepping forward as if to smooth things over. "Grayson, don't be like that. We just wanted to visit, talk a bit. It's been a while since the family got together." I let out a bitter laugh. "A while? You mean since you all decided not to invite me to Thanksgiving because I'd embarrass Carter?" I looked straight at Carter, and for the first time I saw his smirk waver. But only for a second before he regained his confident air, stepping forward and clapping a hand on my shoulder like we were old pals. "Come on, man, don't be mad," Carter said, his voice smooth as honey. "The Thanksgiving thing was just a misunderstanding. You know me. Sometimes I go a bit overboard, but you're my brother. How could I want to upset you?" I brushed his hand off, feeling a wave of anger surge in my chest. "A misunderstanding?" I repeated, my voice colder than I expected. "So calling me a loser, saying I'm the family embarrassment in front of your girlfriend was just a misunderstanding? Or is that just you being overboard?" Carter blinked, clearly not expecting me to know the details. Mom jumped in, her voice high-pitched, almost panicked. "Grayson, why would you say that? We never said those things. Tracy, she must have misunderstood something. What did she tell you?" I looked at Mom, and for the first time I saw the pretense in her eyes. Tracy had recounted every detail accurately. How Mom nodded as Carter badmouthed me, how she said I'd chosen the wrong path. But now she stood here, acting as if she'd never agreed with a single word. I wanted to yell, to ask why I was always the one pushed aside, but I held back. Instead, I said, "Tracy didn't misunderstand anything. She just told the truth." Dad sighed, rubbing his chin as if searching for a way to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Come on, Grayson, that's all in the past. We're here to make peace. You're my son, Carter's brother. Families stick together." I looked at him, then at Mom, then at Carter. They stood there like a perfect picture of a family reunion, but I could see the cracks. They weren't here out of remorse. They were here because of what Tracy had revealed. About my money, about the $1 million portfolio I'd built. Tracy was right. They didn't see me. They saw an opportunity. Mom suggested we go inside to talk. And though I didn't want to, I nodded. Not because I forgave them, but because I wanted to see how far they would go. We walked into the living room where the warm orange glow of the table lamp still cast light on the walls. The gift box I'd prepared for Thanksgiving sat untouched on the table, a reminder of what I'd lost. Mom sat on the sofa. Dad stood near the window, and Carter casually took the armchair, crossing his legs as if he owned the place. "Grayson," Mom began, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I know you're upset about Thanksgiving, but you have to understand we just wanted Carter to have a perfect introduction with Tracy. She's a wonderful girl, and Carter, he's got high hopes for this relationship." I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall, saying nothing. I wanted to hear everything. And Mom continued, her voice growing more excited. "But now we know you've done amazing things. Tracy said you have a lot of money, don't you? You've invested in stocks, real estate? I had no idea you were so talented, Grayson. I'm proud of you." Proud. The word echoed in my head like a mocking laugh. I looked into Mom's eyes, searching for a trace of sincerity, but all I saw was curiosity, eagerness. "Proud?" I asked, my voice calm but icy. "You weren't proud when I fixed pipes for the whole neighborhood. You weren't proud when I lived true to myself. But now, when you hear about money, you're suddenly proud? Mom blinked, her lips pressing together. That's not what I meant, Grayson. Carter cut in, his voice smooth, like a lawyer negotiating. Listen, man, we're not here to fight. You've done some big things, seriously. I'm impressed. But think about it. If you're that good, why not help your family out a bit? I've got some big investment projects, but I need more capital. If you're up for it, we could work together. You put in the money, I manage it, and we both win. It'll bring the family closer. I looked at Carter, and for the first time I saw him for what he was, a contemptible opportunist. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here to exploit me. I thought about all the years I'd stepped aside when I shared my toys with him as a kid, when I worked extra hours to help pay for his college tuition, when I stayed silent every time he belittled me. But now, I wasn't that Grayson anymore. No deal, I said, my voice firm without a hint of hesitation. Carter frowned, clearly unaccustomed to being refused. Come on, don't be selfish, he said. Family comes first, right? Before I could respond, Dad stepped forward, raising a hand as if to stop me. Grayson, that's enough. Carter's just trying to make peace. You need to learn to forgive. Forgive? I repeated, looking straight at Dad. You want me to forgive being excluded from Thanksgiving? Forgive being called a loser in front of Carter's girlfriend? Forgive the fact that you and Mom never once took my side? The living room fell silent. Mom bowed her head, her hands clutching a tissue tightly. Dad sighed, looking out the window. Carter stood up, his face flushed, pointing at me. Who do you think you are, Grayson? Just because you've got some dirty money from stocks, you think you're better than me? You're still just a plumber living in this dump of a house. Don't act like you can stand there and judge us. I didn't flinch. I looked at Carter and I no longer felt anger, just a deep exhaustion. You're right, Carter, I said, my voice steady. I'm a plumber. I live in this house, but I'm proud that I built everything myself without stepping on anyone. And you? What do you have besides the things you flaunt online? A job you don't love? A lifestyle you can't afford? Carter opened his mouth but didn't continue. I turned to my parents, my voice softening but still resolute. I love you both, I really do. But I can't keep doing this. I wanted a real family, but you only came here when you thought I had something to offer. If you can't love me for being Grayson, then I'm done. I need to live for myself. Mom cried, but I wasn't sure if it was out of regret or because she knew I meant it. Dad shook his head, muttering something about me being stubborn. Carter clenched his fists and stormed toward the door. You'll regret this day, Grayson, he said, his voice dripping with resentment. You think you've won, but you're just isolating yourself. They left, leaving me standing alone in the living room. The sound of the BMW's engine faded and I heard the rustle of dry leaves outside. I sat on the sofa looking at the gift box still on the table and felt a strange sense of relief. I was heartbroken, yes, but for the first time in my life I felt free, unburdened by my family's expectations, no longer weighed down by their favoritism. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and told myself I wouldn't go back, never again. The next day I returned to work, fixing a leaky pipe at an elderly woman's house on Elm Street, then driving through downtown Pittsburgh to check a water system for a small office. Work kept me busy, but my mind kept circling back to Tracy's call. She had stood up for me despite her promise to keep my secret. She saw me in a way my family never had. I wondered how she was doing, whether she regretted stirring things up at Carter's dinner. And then, as if she could read my thoughts, my phone buzzed that evening. Grayson, it's me. Tracy's voice came through, gentle but firm. You okay? I heard from Carter. Your family came to your house. I sat down on the sofa, gripping the phone tightly. I'm fine, I guess. They showed up like you warned, but not to apologize. They wanted money, Tracy. Carter talked about investment partnerships and my parents reminded me that family comes first. I told them to leave. Tracy sighed on the other end, and I could picture her shaking her head, her high-tied brown hair swaying. I'm not surprised. Carter, he doesn't change. And that's why I'm calling. I wanted you to know I broke up with him. Her words hit like a bolt of lightning. Not because I hadn't expected it, but because it happened sooner than I thought. Broke up? When? Why? She gave a soft laugh tinged with exhaustion. Just yesterday. I couldn't keep dating someone like Carter. He's selfish, only caring about showing off and using people. I saw how he treated you, how he talked about you behind your back. And yesterday, when he called me, there was no remorse, no apology. And I knew I couldn't be with him for life. I fell silent, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was processing her words. Tracy, the sharp, intelligent woman who helped me build my financial future, had chosen to leave Carter, not just for herself, but for the values she believed in. Are you sure? I asked, my voice hoarse. I mean, Carter's the kind of guy a lot of women dream about. Good job, nice car, flashy lifestyle. Tracy laughed, this time a real laugh. Grayson, you think I care about that stuff? I'm a financial advisor. I see tons of guys like Carter living beyond their means, buying attention with borrowed money. But you're different. You're real. You work hard and you don't need to prove anything to anyone. That's what I respect. My heart pounded, not because I was fantasizing about anything, but because for the first time in my life I felt truly seen, not for the money I had, but for who I was. Thank you, Tracy, I said, my voice softening. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, she replied, but if you're free, meet me at the coffee shop on Forbes tomorrow. I want to talk, not about stocks or Carter, just talk. I smiled, the first real smile in days. Sure. The meeting at the coffee shop marked a new beginning. The shop sat on a quiet street corner with large glass windows overlooking the road. Tracy was there early, sitting in a corner with a latte, wearing a gray sweater and her hair tied up as usual. When I walked in, she looked up, her smile making the room feel brighter. We talked for hours, at first about small things like how good the sandwiches were at the shop or how I once botched a pipe job and had to apologize to a client with a dozen donuts. But then the conversation deepened. She shared her dream of starting her own financial advisory firm to help regular people like me build their futures. I talked about the late nights reading investment books, the pride I felt watching my portfolio grow, and the loneliness of having no one in my family understand me. We started meeting more often, not just at the coffee shop, but at other simple places like the park near my house or an old bookstore in the suburbs. Tracy wasn't like Carter, needing fancy restaurants or glittering lights. She loved real moments, like when we sat on a park bench eating sandwiches and laughing hysterically over a silly story. I began to realize I didn't just value her as a friend. There was something deeper, a connection I'd never felt with anyone else. One evening, as we walked along the Allegheny River, the city lights reflecting on the water, Tracy took my hand. It wasn't a dramatic gesture, just a light, natural touch, as if it was meant to be. Grayson, she said, looking into my eyes, I don't know where this is going, but I like being with you. You make me feel safe. I looked at her, and for the first time I didn't think about my family, Carter, or the hurts of the past. I only thought about her, about how she made me want to be the best version of myself. I like being with you too, Tracy, I said, and we stood there under the city lights, needing no more words. My relationship with Tracy grew quietly, but I knew it wouldn't last forever without complications. Carter, with an ego as towering as a skyscraper, wasn't the type to let things go easily. And as I predicted, just a few weeks after Tracy and I grew closer, he found out. One evening, while I was fixing a pipe in the kitchen, my phone buzzed incessantly. I wiped my hands, picked it up, and Carter's voice came through, seething with anger. Grayson, you're a jerk. You dare steal my girlfriend? Who do you think you are? I frowned, trying to stay calm. Carter, calm down. Tracy broke up with you because she wanted to. I didn't steal anyone. Don't play innocent, he shouted, his voice shrill. I saw the pictures of you two on social media, that cheap coffee shop, the park, acting like some romantic guy. You did this on purpose, didn't you? You wanted to ruin my life because you're jealous. I sighed, sitting down at the kitchen table. Carter, I'm not jealous. I never wanted your life. Tracy and I just clicked. She didn't want to be with you anymore, and you know why. Carter let out a scornful laugh, his voice dripping with resentment. Oh, I get it. Because you've got money, right? You used your money to buy her, thinking you're better than me. But you're still just a plumber, Grayson. She'll get bored of you. His words cut like a knife, but I didn't let them shake me. If you think money is the only thing that keeps people around, that's your problem, not mine, I said evenly. Tracy doesn't need my money, and I don't need to prove anything to you. Leave her alone, Carter. He hung up, and I sat there staring at the phone screen. I knew this wasn't the end. Carter never stopped when he felt slighted, and I was right. A few days later, Mom called. Her voice trembled as if she were holding back tears. Grayson, how could you do this to your brother? Carter says you stole his girlfriend, that you're trying to ruin his life. You're his older brother. How can you be so selfish? I gripped the phone tightly, feeling like everything was circling back to square one. Mom, I didn't steal anyone. Tracy broke up with Carter because she wasn't happy. We only started talking afterward. But have you ever asked me what the truth is, or do you just listen to Carter and believe him right away? Mom was silent for a moment before saying, Carter's hurting, Grayson. He says you betrayed the family. I just want you to fix this. Talk to Tracy. Tell her to go back to Carter. Our family needs to stay together. I let out a bitter laugh. Stay together? You want me to sacrifice my happiness to please Carter? You've never asked how I feel, never taken my side. I'm tired, Mom. I'm not doing it. Mom cried on the other end, but I didn't soften. I love her, but I couldn't keep living to please a family that constantly demanded I yield and endure. I hung up, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Carter didn't stop. He started spreading lies on social media, posts hinting that I was a traitor, messages to mutual friends claiming I'd seduced Tracy to get back at him. A few acquaintances asked me about it, but I didn't respond. I knew the truth, and so did Tracy. But the pressure from my family and Carter's words began to make me doubt, not Tracy, but myself. Was I really worthy of her? Should I step back to avoid more trouble? I told Tracy, and she took my hand, her eyes blazing. Grayson, don't let Carter shake you, she said. He's trying to make you feel guilty for daring to live for yourself. You haven't done anything wrong. I'm here, and I chose you. Her words were like a breeze dispelling the darkness inside me. I hugged her, and I knew that no matter what Carter did, I wouldn't let him destroy what I was building. A year has passed since I stood in my living room, facing my family and delivering my final refusal. A year since Carter left with a resentful glare, my parents quietly following, and my front door closed, carrying away the heavy expectations I once bore. A year since Tracy held my hand by the Allegheny River, the city lights reflecting in her eyes, and I knew I had found what I'd been searching for. Not my family's approval, but someone who truly saw me. Today I stand before a mirror in a small room of an old church in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, wearing a simple gray suit. I smile at my reflection, not because I look dashing. I'm not like Carter with his slick hair or flashy demeanor, but because I feel at peace. Today is my wedding day, the day Tracy and I begin a new chapter, and for the first time in my life, I don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. But even in this moment of happiness, I can't stop a small pang of regret from creeping in. I sent invitations to my parents and Carter, not because I expected them to come, but because I wanted to close the past completely. I knew they wouldn't show up, yet I reserved 3 empty chairs in the church, a reminder of what I once hoped for and what I've learned by letting go. Our wedding isn't like the ones you see in movies. No luxurious hotel, no symphony orchestra, no extravagant bouquets. Tracy and I wanted a simple ceremony, one that reflected who we are. The small church is decorated with warm golden string lights, fresh pine branches filling the air with a gentle fragrance, and a few pots of white daisies Tracy picked out herself at a farmer's market. The guests are just close friends. Joe, my co-worker who's been with me on plumbing jobs for the past 5 years. Sarah, my high school friend who always teased me about my worker fashion sense. And a few of Tracy's colleagues from the financial firm who are always surprised to learn that I, a plumber, know more about stocks than they do. Tracy walks in, and my heart skips a beat. She's wearing a simple ivory dress that falls just below her knees, her brown hair loose with a small pearl clip. She doesn't need heavy makeup or sparkling jewelry. She's beautiful in the way I've always loved, authentic, strong, and radiant with light. When she takes my hand at the altar, it feels like the world narrows to just the two of us. The priest reads the vows, but I barely hear him. I'm lost in Tracy's eyes, remembering our coffee dates at the shop on Forbes Street, our walks by the river, the nights we sat on my sofa discussing the future with the excitement of two people building a shared dream. When it's my turn to speak, I hold her hands tightly, my voice thick with emotion. Tracy, I begin. You saw me when no one else did. You helped me believe in myself, not just through numbers or portfolios, but through the way you looked at me, the way you reminded me I'm enough. I don't promise you the world, but I promise you everything I have. My love, my respect, and a life we'll build together. Tracy smiles, her eyes shimmering with tears. Grayson, she replies, her voice soft but steady. You taught me that happiness isn't found in flashy things, but in real moments. I choose you not for who you are on paper, but because you're the best man I've ever known. I promise to stand by you no matter what comes. We exchange rings, simple silver bands, no gemstones, but carrying our promises. When the priest declares us husband and wife, I pull Tracy into my arms, kissing her amid the applause and laughter of our friends. But in that moment, I glance at the 3 empty chairs at the back of the church. They're still empty, as I expected. A fleeting pang of regret passes through me, but it quickly fades as Tracy squeezes my hand and whispers, "You okay?" I nod, smiling. Better than ever. After the wedding, Tracy and I move into a new home. Not a lavish mansion, but a 2-story house with a backyard big enough to plant a few apple trees like the ones in the home where I grew up. I still work as a plumber, still drive my old pickup truck, but now I have Tracy by my side, and that warms my heart. My story doesn't end with a grand victory or sweet revenge. It ends with peace, something I once thought I didn't deserve. I've learned that happiness doesn't come from others' approval, but from living true to yourself. Tracy is proof of that, the person who reminds me that real love is built on respect and understanding, not fleeting vanities. As I stand in our backyard watching the newly planted apple trees sway in the breeze, I think of Carter, my parents, and the empty chairs at our wedding. I'm not angry anymore. I only hope that one day they'll learn what I have, that family isn't just what you're born into, but what you build day by day with the people who truly care. I turn back to the house, seeing Tracy brewing coffee in the kitchen, her smile lighting up as she spots me. "Ready for a new day, love?" she asks. I nod, walking over to hug her from behind. "Ready. With you, I'm always ready."